All right, welcome back, everyone, to Black Bulb Podcast Strategy. We don't know what it is anymore.
Yeah.
Today we got Francisco Morales. He is what do you call yourself?
I was thinking about that in the car. I'd say like
You're an illustrator for sure.
Yeah,
but you
I'd
could
say
be more
like,
specific.
Yeah, I'd say like illustrator, visual artist. I think is like probably the easiest way.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely do graphic design.
Yeah.
Like I do I do murals, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just visual artist, somebody who just plays in visual space, I guess.
Yeah, and I saw one of your prints at La Perlita.
Yeah,
It was up above the coffee shop area, and it just like blew my mind. I was like, who is that guy? Who made that? I need to get them on the podcast. So,
yeah.
It's working, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked. That was actually pretty quick too, to be honest. I just put it up like a week ago or whatever.
Wow,
so I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm glad it's up.
Yeah. So it's super vibrant work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of trippy, but there's also some grittiness to it, even though there's a lot of like really happy colors. And I mean, like, how would you kind of describe your aesthetic?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, those are earlier works.
Yeah.
And those are actually kind of closer. Those are actually, if I were to like put it into the timeline, it's like I had just graduated from school. I had just like finished my degree in printmaking, and I got out of art school and couldn't get a job. So I was like,
classic
sob story of like, yo, 40K down the drain. Like, what am I doing? And I was like throwing my portfolio around to like Adidas, Nike, etc., whatever would take me, and it didn't pan out. So I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to shift gears. And I just had gotten an iPad for Christmas. Like the first iPad Pro was like the big 13-inch one. And I kind of just decided that I should probably learn how to use this tool and use that from that point forward, since I figured graphic designers are all in the box kind of, or there needed to be some sort of like I just needed to know the tools, I guess. And those were like the first kind of works that I did on the iPad. And I actually used this program that doesn't exist anymore. I'm really sad. It was called Adobe Draw.
Oh.
And it was like,
God, they fucked up then.
Yeah.
Adobe screwed up.
Yeah. It was like, it was dope because it's vector, but you could use the Apple Pencil and you could draw. But then you can just bounce it straight into Illustrator, and it was a vector, and you can just like scale it up, scale it down, like recolor everything super easy. But it was also like hella limited. It only had like 4 different brushes and an eraser. And I think you could only do like 20 layers. So I made that.
Are you sure that wasn't Microsoft Paint?
I mean, it was basically like the Microsoft Paint for the iPad.
Yeah.
But since I was so kind of like technologically kind of like getting up to speed, I just was like, oh, this is perfect. There's like one brush that I like, and there's 20 layers. So it's kind of like printmaking, thinking like, how do I make like something work with like, 2-3 layers? And I was doing woodcuts, so
yeah, you definitely
and like reductions.
You have a woodcut.
You
style.
kind of have to like plan it out before you make your print. You're like, okay, I don't want to carve this 20 times, so like, how can I do this as efficiently as possible? So it kind of translated in that sense. And yeah, I guess so. Going back to style, I don't know. I guess it's like psychedelic. A lot of my work is based on like the Latino experience. So if you kind of look, like there's images that kind of are reminiscent to like my memories. I guess at that time I was really thinking about memories, and I think I still kind of like go back to that a lot. So there's like my grandma's in one of them, and like there was this guy that I knew growing up that was like a landscaper, and like and just kind of thinking about like the Garden of Eden in your mind, of like, all of these early impressions of like, who are these Latinos in my life, and like, how do they fit into like my story? I was also really into Takashi Murakami at the time, and he does like these crazy giant paintings that are hella flat. Like they're kind of inspired by like anime and manga. So I was also kind of playing around with like, how do I make something that has dimension, but it's like also hella flat. So all the colors are just like really matte, and the depth is kind of there with the horizon line and kind of a little bit of perspective in the drawing, but it's all really supposed to be like kind of in one plane, I guess. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are those works. Those are part of a series that I did, and then yeah, it kind of like has evolved now. I'm doing less vector, and like it's more like raster based, so it's like more pixel based art. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. You kind of just sometimes like, I think it was really fun to do that, but it was also very reminiscent to like screen printing and printmaking, and I kind of wanted to push myself to do something that had a little bit more dimension, like with textures and playing around with different textures. I think in vector, it's always hard to kind of get textures into your work because it's not set up to be like optimal in a vector setting. So yeah, I just started playing around, and like now, and because the software is no longer a thing, like it was kind of like they worked in tandem. Like Adobe Draw kind of got like eliminated, and then they came out with the like Illustrator or Fresco or whatever. I don't know. I hate them. Those are like the new mobile apps for the iPad.
Oh,
that like they kind of like they took Adobe Draw and then they kind of like vacuumed it and integrated into this other program. But then it had like way too many tools at that point. I was like, I don't want to relearn another program. Like it worked because it was dummy proof, like one brush, one eraser, perfect. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, that was a nice little run. So then I just like, I had also bought Procreate around some point, and I just was like, okay, I guess I'll just start using Procreate, and
Procreate nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, Procreate it's a badass program. I only use like maybe like 4 or 5 brushes, but it does what I need, and I know how to use it, so it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that I would have to understand being an obstacle is someone like you who has done a lot of woodcut stuff is to actually recreate that texture that you like so much. And I feel like that'd be the biggest obstacle, but it seems like you nailed it. Yeah,
I mean, we have so much now these days. Like there's so many like texture packs. Like people have been working in digital for so long that they're just giving away like all of these textures and all of these like resources. So the internet is definitely your friend. You can just go and find, there's a company called True Grit Texture Supply. I think I was like a targeted ad on Instagram that like I got, and I was like, oh, these textures are pretty rad. And I kind of downloaded a pack, and they do a pretty good job of kind of like blowing out different kinds of like analog textures that like really look real. Like there's some posters that I've done that look like I did it with like pen and ink with like a quill, but it's all digital.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you by True Grit Textures. Get all your textures you ever need. It'll look like a quill.
We'll send the
bill. So where do you? So you kind of mentioned that a lot of your inspiration comes from your past as a Latino in America.
Yeah.
When you're feeling uninspired, how do you get that feel back?
That's a great question. I think that's the constant struggle with like being a maker. I think you go through your highs where you're really like inspired and motivated, and then there's like the lows where you're like, man, like what do I do? Like how do I what do I do?
What do I even do, man?
Yeah. So I think what's helped me is to like take on little freelance projects here and there. Like right now I'm working on finishing up like this book illustration, and I did like this branding project. Wow. Like for like I've been trying to help and like get plugged in with like all of like the POC like makers here in town. So part of that was I was working with a lot of like musicians.
We noticed a lot of like album cover work that you're putting up.
Yeah, so those things are fun because it's like a quick brief where it's like, hey, like it's like a salsa band and like we want to capture the vibe of our new album. It's like, cool, like that takes me somewhere. And then the other one would be like, oh, it's a hip hop artist like from Portland and like they have a completely different aesthetic. So then that pushes the work that way. And then all of those things kind of help inform like where I'm going and like what I'm interested in at that time. And then when I get back to making personal work, I think I just like take things. Like I think for a project I did like this like airbrush gradient effect and I was like, oh, this is rad. Like I like the way that this looks. It kind of adds some dimension. It's kind of inspired by like something that a client had like told me like about like kind of the vibe that they wanted in the art. So I kind of was like, hey, I pushed myself. I went somewhere that I wouldn't have necessarily gone and I liked it. Right. And so then I just brought it back and I just like incorporated it into the work. So that helps me like kind of like turn it off and like not be so serious about like, what do I want to do and where do I want to take it? And more to just like, hey, like give me a brief and like I'll work on your project. But in the end, I'm always kind of like my gears are turning and I'm like, there's something here like to take away.
Yeah.
And so that helps kind of inform whatever comes next.
It's funny the way you describe like, what do I do, right? That kind of reminds me of being a kid and you're like, I'm bored. And you say that around the wrong relative and they're like, oh, well, I have some yard work for you to do. And you're like, fuck. And so like, that's kind of what you do where you're like, I'm bored. And then you give yourself work and you're like, I'm not bored anymore. I'll go do something I like. I like where your head's at. And that probably speaks to like maybe a little bit of the upbringing too, because Italians and like Latino families, like you don't get to be bored.
No.
Nope. Like,
oh no!
Oh really? You don't have
I know
to do.
exactly what you're talking about.
For you right now.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My mom used to say the same thing. She'd be like, "Oh, you're bored? Like, here's a mop. Like, here's some like, there's hella shit to do. Like, don't like."
I think I made that mistake twice. I haven't said I was bored since I was like 9. It's not allowed around my family. Joe's the camera guys. They definitely knows what that's going on. Like, Italian family.
It's like it brings back so many memories. I remember my mom would wake up at like. There's like a meme, like a Latino meme that you see going around about like, you know, like Mexican moms or Latino moms waking up at like Saturday morning, and it's like if it's 7 a.m. and you hear salsa coming out of the kitchen, like you know that like it's time to clean the whole house, and every kid and every person I talk to is just like under the sheets, like pretending to be asleep. It's like, dear God, like if I make a single noise, I'm gonna have to get up and I'm gonna have to go start cleaning or go do this whole thing, and there goes my Saturday.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
But when they come through the door, they don't give a shit if you're asleep.
Oh no,
they're coming to wake your ass up.
Yeah, hell no, yeah, for sure.
That shit still hasn't ended for me. I remember it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and my dad. It was under the pretense of him wanting to get me some trees for my backyard. I didn't ask for them, right? Yeah. And I'm like 28 at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's raining, and we're going to Home Depot, and my truck is full of shit that I don't need.
Yeah.
And I'm in the backyard, and it occurs to me, it's like, oh, he just needs to make me dig a hole. It's important to him. Like I've been doing this. Like he calls my job finger painting.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't take art seriously at all. So he's like, I haven't seen this kid do any fucking labor in 2 years. I got to make sure he's still a man, and it's just important to him to make me dig a hole. So like.
So get to it.
Exactly.
Get to it.
So I think that's kind of like, I think that's in you if you're raised like that somewhere.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm going to find a way to like, because it is feel a little bit indulgent to get to make stuff, right? You know what I mean? But it's really important and it is a real thing. But like, I think there's if you're on enough of that, like you'll feel the obligation to do some like quote unquote other stuff you have to. Yeah,
that's
100%.
important, man. I think that translates well to like artists and stuff because you know if you're an artist, sometimes you don't have someone breathing down your neck saying like, no, you got to make this, you got to be there at 9 a.m. You got to have that done by Thursday. Like no one's telling you that.
Well,
stuff.
and you've told me specifically to stop using that voice with Joe, so. I can just talk to him like normal. I'm like, no, I'm Batman. You need to finish this vector artwork immediately. How dare you? Start doing raster. What do you know about Procreate?
But I do think it translates well, and that does play into why your work is up in places. You're doing murals, you're being seen. So good job.
Thanks. Yeah. I think
I'm just excited to see an East LA Batman out of this guy now. This is gonna be dope.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of just saying like just doing the whole like yes man thing. Like I think that's kind of gotten me like into Nike like at this point. But like up until that, like I was just freelancing and like working customer service. So I was like kind of moonlighting as a designer, illustrator for like 3 years.
Wow.
Until it kind of like, my portfolio, I guess, got into the right hands, and they were like, yo, like, let's interview this kid.
That's cool.
And I was
that
like,
seems
tight.
about right, though. About like 3 years, you know, because even when we first started this studio, like the first couple of years were rough, you know. Like
that's the thing they don't like. I don't know if y'all went to art school
We all did.
I was gonna say, man, he's talking about 40 grand. He got off the hook easy.
Yeah, we all went to art institute.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah. So you're like,
we're way more than 40 grand.
So if you guys want to donate to our Patreon.
I went to state school. I actually came up to go to Oregon State.
Oh, I went to Oregon State.
So and so I just like I finished that there.
Wait, so you were at OSU?
Mm-hmm.
When were you there? I was probably there too.
I graduated in 2016 and I started in like 2014.
I went there like 2008.
Yeah, I was late. I was late.
Yeah.
I was playing music, and I have my degree in like recording like technology.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was like basically a roadie, like running around setting up speakers and running cable and like doing live sound and shit. And then playing gigs. Like that was like my first kind of chapter in like creativity. And that's only because for some reason like music made sense to my mom, but not visual art.
Okay.
But like I'd always wanted to do visual
Well, she watched how productive you kids were when the salsa was on. I mean, it makes sense. She's like, this is the shit that gets you done.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because she loves music and loves listening to music. So she was like, oh, go try out on American Idol or something.
But also, like, you can do something while you listen to music. I think that there's a generation of people that, like, visual art is the epitome of just, like, you don't have, like, it's like a leisure activity. Yeah. Like, I'm just going to stand around and look at a painting. It's not like that. But whereas, like, you could be listening to music. Like, Rocky was running to something. Right. They weren't holding a painting in front of him.
Right.
There was those fucking trumpets.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, we talk about this a lot with people is, like, the thing that you did that you, like, why did I do that before the thing I do now? Mm-hmm. You working in music has to have some impact on your ability to so well capture the visual version of people's music.
100%.
Like, I mean, that's a big portion of what you do now.
100%.
And that's, I mean, you know, you might not have that ability if you hadn't spent that whole previous chapter doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it also, like, it was like a no-brainer for me because I remember being in a band and always needing like merch and like needing like album art and like posters. I think posters were like where it clicked because it's like, oh cool, like here's like quick work. And like I was actually just talking to a friend about this like a couple of days ago because they were asking me about like how I got started, and like posters were really where I learned a lot. I was doing show posters for the Doug Fir. And then I do posters like for artists randomly, and like they'd contract me, be like, hey, like we have this big gig, like here are the details, have at it. So it was fun. Like I love music. I'm always working to music, and like I've gotten to work with like bands that I'm huge fans of, like Ila Bamba, like Savila, like Orquestra Pacifico Tropical. They're like this dope like salsa band that's based out of the Pacific Northwest, and they're like 13 members. They're super, super dope. And I remember going to a show and I was like, yo, I gotta make a connection here. Cause like, I want to do stuff for them cause it would be really rad. But yeah, it's kind of where I learned how to like having to do, like, I didn't know shit about type. So at that point I was like, it's a poster, like there's hella type. So in my mind, I was like, I don't know like how to pair fonts. So I'll just draw them. And like, so I just like hand did all of these posters for everybody. Wow. And then
you handed type for every poster, huh?
Yes.
Man, that's
in Procreate, by the way. Procreate. Yeah. Like I just drew everything out in Procreate, and I was like, all right, here's your poster. And like, it was kind of like a rudimentary way of like going through like a type course, because in that you're kind of like, like learning like, hey, like X height, like, you know, like the X height, like is uniform across the board here, and that'll help you like build a font that looks cohesive and like that looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a great exercise, and I was getting to do like stuff for bands that I liked. And on the flip, which was always something that I think about, was I suck at social media. So I was like, hey, like they're going to promote themselves because that's their job, like they're musicians. So why not like do work for them for like hella cheap and like have them make up the cost and promote my work, and like that would like lead to other things, and that's how I ended up going to getting a gig at the Doug Fir.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I saw your stuff, I didn't realize that I'd seen so much of your stuff at Doug Fir. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
'Cause it's got a total vibe to it, and I really dig it. Back to the comment about typography though. That's another thing that like I'm just going to, I tend to latch onto something and it'll come back for the entire episode. But like people that don't necessarily like appreciate art, like you explain to them like the importance of typography. They'll be like, it's just fucking letters, bro. Like they don't get it. Yeah. And then they'll send out like a graduation invite in Comic Sans and you're like, this is why you fucking picked the right font. You know what I mean? Like, and there are people that they undermine the value of that stuff, and it's like, all right, dude, I want you to write a letter to a judge in Comic Sans.
Yeah.
And see if you
like
get off
happens.
probation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Dude, it blows my mind how much we still see papyrus all around town.
It's everywhere.
It's tribal yet futuristic. You know?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's hand done.
Dude, you know, sometimes when I'm feeling classy, I hit a Zapfino on somebody. And, Dear Monica, I'm very sorry for what I did. Zapfino. it's the font of apologies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was just like, I guess it just made sense at the time, and it was like, I'm such a brute at everything that I'm just like, like I don't know how to do it, so like let me just like smash my iPad.
I like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about smashing things. Would you like to join us for a brainstorming and biceps?
Yeah, that's actually how we get through our mental blocks as we go work out, which sounds so bro. It sounds so broy.
Yeah.
And I almost refer to us as like bros in recovery because like we're trying so hard not to be.
No, yo, exercise is key though.
Yeah.
But I've been like going on walks when I get stuck. I'll just like go on a walk for like an hour, and it just like clears your head.
Yeah.
Well, it's just fun. Like pre-COVID, you'd see the two of us like sharing the bench press, and then if you were to look at us, you'd be like, "Oh, they're probably being misogynistic," and then you'd be like, "No, for real, man. I feel like the imagery for this bridal catalog could be a lot better."
Brighten her eyes a little more.
And then like, oh, what are they planning their wedding? What are they doing? Yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah, what gets you excited?
Yeah.
Aside
salsa.
Aside is in terms of like visual work or like life.
Let's do both.
Yeah.
Okay. I shouldn't have left it so open.
Whatever you're comfortable sharing, man. I mean, it's kind of an open format.
I guess. I mean, for me, it's always like stepping into like the unknown and like doing stuff that is gonna push me to do something I've never done. That's like for visual and like all that stuff. Like that mural I did, that's like I've always wanted to do a mural, and like in school I did some like large scale paintings that were maybe like 6 feet by like 10 feet, right? Yeah. So in my mind I'm like, oh yeah, I've done it on a canvas, like I can do like a wall. And then I ended up getting like a grant to do this mural, and it was like, oh, like we go to the mural and it's like, oh, surprise, this thing is 10 feet by 40 feet.
Whoa.
And like we didn't have like a cherry picker, so I had to use like I don't remember what those things
ladder.
Ladder. It was basically ladder and like one of those little like platform things. I don't know what they're called. But
scaffolding?
Yes, that
Scaffolding.
thing. Yeah, and one
okay.
small rickety like 4 foot like scaffold and 2 ladders
For 40 feet wide.
Yeah, and like I remember like being like, oh yeah, I'm super into this, and then like after day 2 I was like, holy shit, like
my back.
I'm exhausted.
Yes.
This is like luckily I had like a bunch of friends that came through, and like they helped me kind of like do like filling in like this color, and like that was another thing, since I haven't painted in so long, and like I have obviously not done a mural, but all of my work is hella saturated, like acidy colors. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I propositioned to put up on this wall. And there was this really bright yellow that I love, but it's super transparent. So we're like sitting there, like going over like code after code after code on this thing. and you're just like I hate this thing, like it is killing me. But then at the end of the day, it took us like a full 7 days, like 10-hour days, if not longer. And and then that was done, and like we finished it, and I was like, cool, that was rad. Like, now let's go do something else that I've never done.
Let's go do micro paintings. Yeah. I guess when you mentioned the thin paint thing, I guess like primer isn't a thing on murals.
It is. I just didn't have like the forethought to like.
Yeah.
Eventually we were like, why don't we just paint white and then paint the yellow on top? And it's like, oh yeah, no shit, dude. Like, duh. But like, it was kind of that thing where like, you kind of just have to kind of figure it out sometimes. Like now at work, I work at Nike, like I do like super conceptual stuff, and like we're working like 2 years in advance, and it's like, I'm like nobody knows what this is supposed to look like because it's 2 years in advance, right? Yeah. Like we're taking like market research and like make a thing, and so.
You're writing the future,
I guess. Yeah, like we get to take a crack at it. We're like the first team that gets to take a crack at it, and that's fun. But it's also like, I'll be like sitting there and just like racking my brain, like what can this look like? Like what are people gonna be into 2 years from now? Like what the hell?
That's fun though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like it's hard, but it's fun, and it like that. So that gets me going, and like I'm always looking for like a new opportunity to be like, hey, like what new thing could I try and like do?
I just want to be there the day that you pitched Nike. You're like, oh, shoelaces. Where we're going, we don't need shoelaces. Like, just fuck it. Like, go for it.
We already have that.
Exactly.
We already have that.
That's my point. That could have been you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the thing is, like some
feet. We don't need feet. We're not doing them anymore. I'm calling it now.
I mean, that's kind of how the vibe is sometimes. There's just like some crazy shit gets thrown out there, and then they're like, all right, actually, 4 years from now, that will exist.
Huh.
I think people are getting more used to that, though. Like, just the idea, like, back in the day, if you were to come up with something wild, like, people will remember the misses more than the hits, right? Now when anyone says damn near anything, you're like, it's probably doable. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, fucking, like, Donald Trump's been president. Like, like, no one's going to be shocked by anything anymore.
Yeah, true.
I mean, The Rock is running, apparently, maybe.
Really? Matthew McConaughey's going to be governor?
We could potentially have Dwayne The Rock
Johnson. It's literally Idiocracy, except he's way doper than the guy from Idiocracy.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked.
I'm stoked on The Rock.
I want to see, like, Dwayne, like, rock bottom, like somebody, like, go, like, rock bottom Putin or something.
So, and here's the thing. As a fan of combat, I really like that matchup because Putin's a black belt in judo.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Like,
have you seen that picture of him?
It's like the Logan Paul fucking fight. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Our guy's fucking Floyd Mayweather. Our guy's Logan Paul. Damn it.
Oh, my God.
Damn it.
Logan Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, maybe we could get to a point where, like The Rock settles international disputes. Like, it's like, yo, like France, you got a problem? Like, meet me in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah, or he makes them go to he makes countries do brainstorming and biceps together.
Oh.
Like The Rock is
very formative.
He's like an international
like
Judge
stuff.
Judy kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be tight.
Remember when we said this is a really loose format?
Yeah, here we are. Down the rabbit hole.
This could go anywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, which other professional wrestlers do you think would make good politicians?
If we could get Stone Cold. Like Stone Cold, like just like in Congress, like smashing Budweiser's over his head.
I feel like people would be less inclined to storm the Capitol if they had Stone Cold.
He already did it. He already stormed it.
Like someone's like, I picture them like storming the Capitol, and remember when the guy was like screaming for Nancy Pelosi? It's the exact opposite. Yeah, like they're in there, and then they just hear Stone Cold be like, "You big ass sons of bitches," and they're like, you hear the music, and then they all leave. Yeah, because they're afraid of getting Stone Cold stunner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gold Dust.
Oh shit.
Gold Dust would also be another good one.
So good. He would be really effective in the South because his whole gimmick was that he would blow gold dust on you and kiss you, which is just plain homophobes.
Like, they'd be freaking out.
Dude, if you threw a handful of glitter at a Southern congressman, I feel like you should automatically be president. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I think those would be my top nominations.
We have to keep an eye out for his like upcoming Instagram posts. If we see East LA Batman or Gold Dust as president, I want a black bold logo in the corner.
I don't even know how to segue this back into art.
What are you talking about? This is the most artistic thing I've contributed in a month.
It's definitely creative.
I'll
give you that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
that's
love
the
it.
podcast equivalent of a gold star. Thanks, buddy. I'll put this on the fridge. What's the weirdest thing you've done lately? There you go. Transition.
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing.
What's like the most like what's the Donald Trump being elected president version of art you've been asked to do lately?
Oh, huh.
Yeah, without calling him out directly.
Yeah.
I don't think I have. I don't think I've done anything weird.
No,
and I think everything's pretty like standard protocol. Nothing. Sorry to disappoint. Nothing.
Oh, no worries.
But I mean, it'd be tight. Like I'm throwing it out there. Like hit me up to like design a bounce house. Like that'd be tight.
A bounce house?
Yeah, like that's on my list of things that I want to do. Like at some point, I want to like.
Told you this is going somewhere. What? This is awesome.
I would love to design a bounce. So like little context. My aunt, like I grew up and my aunt would fabricate like bounce houses in her garage.
Wow.
And so like every birthday, like she just hook us up with like 2 bounce houses for free and we'd be like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember like in the 90s, it was like, oh, like Castle. And then like it quickly, like people got into the game and then it was like, okay, now it's like a boxing ring. And like now it's like Godzilla. Like, and it just like became like this really crazy, like expressive, like kids functional object that ended up being really rad. And I was like, yo, like in hindsight, I was like, yeah, I'd love to like make a bounce house. I think it'd be rad to just do hella bounce houses.
Wait,
Why not?
so hold on. So she would fabricate, it would almost be like a structure, like an inflatable structure that was to a
like
theme?
they'd be in the garage, like with sewing machines, like sewing the vinyl. And like in their minds, they're like, oh yeah, this will turn into like a castle. I'm like, what the, like, how do you even like, it's like fabricating apparel, but like
That's
on a
intense.
large scale.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
they were just in there like with their sewing machines. It was nuts. It's super, I mean, like it's also vinyl. Like that shit's like hella thick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
It's not
industrial
for-
strength.
Yeah.
And
Not
you have to make it
forgiving.
airtight.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, if you screw up, you know.
Yeah, there goes the kids.
Dude, could you imagine like how many times like in the beginning of their inflatable stuff career, like it just didn't look
It
right?
just like it's like wonky. Yeah. It only had like three pillars and like it was missing one.
There had to have been some fails.
100%.
I just love the idea that he's got like Tia Elon Musk over here being like, no, I've got a vision. It's like, I mean, how does that start? Did she have to make like one heavy set niece's like dress and she's like, I could make a fucking castle?
I don't know.
That's so random and so cool.
I don't know. I don't know how they ended up getting into that, but I just like, it was like a thing that was just like, we went to their house and they were making these things.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell are they doing? And they're like making bounce house. Like, no way. And then, yeah, like a week later, it's like, oh, bounce house out the house. Like, we'd go visit, and they just like, oh, you guys want to bounce? Like,
What?
just like throw it out in the back. You know,
So, I mean,
It's,
that's
like,
a
super
genius
trippy.
idea though, because you can rent those out
Oh
constantly.
hell yeah, they were making money.
Dude, that's so smart.
It was such a craze too, like in the burbs. I don't know if like that's. I mean, it rains here a lot,
Yeah.
but in SoCal,
No,
it's
a
like hot
thing.
as shit.
It's a thing here too. I mean, well, speaking of kind of similar to that, Cause did a hot air balloon recently.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
right,
and
right.
it
Same
was,
thing.
it's incredible.
They took my Tia's like.
What?
They ripped her up, man.
Yeah, they
How
totally
could they do that?
I just love that. Like, that's some serious go-getter that you're like, where, like, you see. No part of me and under no amount of like psychedelics would believe that I could look at a bounce house and be like, I could fucking do it. Like, I would look at a car and think I could make that before I think I could make a bounce house.
Yeah, but order two pallets of vinyl. We're just getting this going.
Do you have a plan? We'll figure it out.
I mean, that's kind of. I'm sure that's kind of like how they went about it. I mean, there's not like it's not like there's a school like it's like Bounce House University.
Oh,
or
no,
like,
that's
what are you
actually
gonna
one of the
do?
degrees they offer
Like,
at the Art
how are you
Institute.
gonna get
It's
there?
$900,000.
The first
But
one.
now it is.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
now it is.
Yeah, that's a degree. That's an offering at the Art Institute now.
Oh yeah, and you start off with like bad air mattresses and like a leaf blower.
Yeah,
That's like
and
the first
your-
rendition
and your
of
senior
it.
project is like a waterbed.
Sick. That would be sick.
Yeah.
So that'd be a weird thing that I'd want to do.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a chance to do anything.
Well,
Yeah.
put out the
Super
call
crazy.
to action now.
Yeah, it's out there.
Forget Textures R Us or whoever they are. Fucking coming at who's the king of bounce houses?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like there's a local commercial. I feel like there's a local commercial where like someone's like, if you need a bounce house, come on down to Bob O'Reilly's Bounce House Emporium. We've got every bounce house you could possibly need. Do you have a daughter? Do you have a son? Do you have an aunt? Do you have an uncle? Do you have a large child that needs to be preoccupied? Well, come on down to Bob's. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
we're fucking shots fired, motherfucker.
Collab. Let's collab. No, let's collab.
Exactly,
Let's
right?
go. Yeah,
no.
I'm down.
It's, okay, now we have to be friendly. Sorry, Bob.
So
Well, I'm still trying to get the gig. You're out here
it's-
talking shit.
No,
I'm like,
no,
yo, Bob, like hook me up, dude.
We're back to pro wrestling. I'm the management. Okay,
Yeah.
We're planning a big block party, and I swear to God, we might have to get a bounce house now.
yeah,
that
you
you've made.
should.
Yeah.
You should.
We've been talking about what we're doing for Black Bolt. We're like billboards, T-shirts, fucking bounce house.
Bounce house, Black Hole Bounce House.
Ooh,
It
can
has
it
a
be
good
spooky?
ring. Can it be spooky?
Black Bolt. Bounce house. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. We'll
Yeah,
think about it out.
yeah. Why not? Why not?
Yeah. So what's some up and coming project shows? Anything you got coming up?
We have, I think this is wrapping up, I think at the end of the week. So at Nike, we like all of the Latinx designers across the org have kind of like gotten together and like formed like a little collective. So it's like material designers, shoe designers, graphic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of like put our heads together and we're like, yo, how can we like give back? And like, how can we do something that's not just like the stuff that we're responsible for here at Nike?
Yeah.
So we organized like a relief like art auction. It's up at One Grand Gallery over on Burnside. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's near it's kind of by the Doug Fir.
Yeah, okay.
By the Jupiter Hotel or whatever, right? It's like up this. It's by the Hippo Hardware place.
Yeah.
Right next.
Yeah.
It's like right next to it on the opposite corner.
I like how you worked real hard not to say it's right next to Yukon Jack's the strip club. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You're like,
Every other place.
You went right around the strip club. You really did. You went. Totally. He fucking paused too. He was going down the street. You were here.
Wow. I thought I had made it, and then you had to call my ass. I was like, yeah. Every other place.
Yeah. They're right next to the Bounce House Emporium. Fucking Bob.
All right. You got there's so we're
wow, yeah, you're quick. All right, yeah. So, anyways, so we're doing like so it's an art auction. All the work's like up for auction, and all the proceeds are going to the Honduras like relief effort. I don't know if y'all remember, like a couple of months ago, they got slammed by 2 huge hurricanes.
Right. Yeah.
And they're still kind of like dealing with the aftermath of that. So all the money's going to it's like, I think it's like House of Ruth, I think is the organization, and they basically provide healthcare for like kids and families, which is like kids just got like their whole like their houses, schools, everything got like destroyed. So we're doing that, and that's up. I think the auction ends this weekend. I mean, other than that, just work stuff. I mean, everything that I'm working on is like, like 2-3 years out in advance. So we won't see any of that for a while. So, and then other than that, like there's like a book that there's this writer here. She's really talented. She also was like a DJ. She formed like this DJ collective here called Noche Libre. They did like this whole really dope programming pre-COVID. It was all like female and Latinx, like BIPOC, like DJs and stuff.
What's separate interest? I'm a writer and I'm a DJ.
Yeah, I mean that's sick.
Different.
I mean,
It's
I think
great.
it's like she's like she's like an activist. So I think she was really about like creating space, for like Latinos here in Portland.
That's great.
So she hit me up to do her book, and the cover's already out, but I think the book will be like officially out at the end of June.
Yeah.
Other than that, nah, nothing too crazy. Always on the lookout for more projects, but whenever they come.
Well, I mean, we're going to be pitching bounce houses hard this quarter.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
This new business model. Where can everybody find you if they want to get a hold of you and see the upcoming bounce houses and other stuff?
My Instagram is going to be the best place. It's at Laylow Creative.
Low
Creative. Yeah.
Creative, yes.
It's all one word, no underscores or dashes or anything.
And then last thing, any advice for up and coming artists trying to make it?
Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah. I'd say you're going to get kicked in the ass a lot. I'd just say, like be ready to pivot and you just gotta make work. I mean, I'd say take out every opportunity that you can, even as stupid or as low paying as you may think. I think if you bring the heat every time and you have a good attitude, I think everybody, like, it's not only just about doing good work, but also like leaving like a good impression with people. I mean, you don't have to like bend over backwards, and definitely like don't let people take advantage of you. But I think there's a fine space between that where you can like leave somebody with a positive impression on top of great work. And those people are going to be like, yo, like this kid is professional. He does great work. And like somebody will be like, hey, like we need this. And they'll be like, I know exactly who. And that's how I've gotten a lot of work. I mean, that's kind of was like one, what was the first thing I did? Shit. I think I just did like album covers. I think I just like started hitting up artists like randomly and like on Instagram, and I'd be like, hey, like, do you like need any merch or anything? And it kind of just like slowly, I did like some stuff for like a nonprofit for the community cycling center. And like I did like their kids program. And then that kind of led me to do other projects. So I'd say, so to sum it up, like have a good attitude, don't give up, get ready to get your ass kicked a lot, and get ready to get, like, people will just say no to you straight up, like a lot, but take it in stride and know that like the more no's you get, like you're getting closer to that yes.
Yeah. Then more importantly, like, stick up for yourself at times.
100%.
Say what you want every now and then. They say what they want. Say what you want.
Yeah. I mean, and it's definitely something that I learned later on. I think we all do, is like, it's okay to put your foot down and to realize that, like, even if you just graduated from high school, from art school or school, however you got to where you're at, if you're getting hired, like, you're the professional, and like feel like entitled to be like, nah, it's gonna look like shit. I mean, you definitely, like, I've definitely, like, early on, I'd like just do everything a client would want, and then hand it off and be like, this, like, don't tag me, like, don't put my name on it because it looks really bad. And then like now I'll be like, you know, clients will throw hella things at you and be like, like, I hear you, like, I understand, and like maybe try it out so that they could see it, but always be ready to defend, like, hey, like, I do this for a living. Yeah. Like, I've done this before. I studied this. Like, this is going to look better. And at the end of the day, they'll be like, oh, yeah, totally. Like, people are just, sometimes they're just talking out of their ass, you know? Totally. They don't really know, like, what they want.
Yeah, they don't know.
I mean, I've literally never done that, but I get your point. Maybe this is all part of working to Chapter 3 where you become a plastic surgeon. You're like, no, I'm positive. You don't want me to do that. You're going to look like shit.
Well, anyways, man.
No, but that's a great point, man. For like, that's encouraging for people to hear that it is a lot of, like, twists and turns.
For sure.
Especially in the beginning. Like you said, be a yes man in the beginning, for sure. Yeah. Once you have your established portfolio, then you could be more picky.
Exactly.
And we're happy to see you where you've come. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
your
thank
pleasure.
you for the invite.
Hope to have you back sometime soon. And
for
best of luck with all your stuff in the future endeavors.
Yeah,
thanks.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.